Hello everyone, thank you for joining us on this edition of The Inside on Equinoxe Television. We're bringing to you this program from our studio in Cameroon's political capital, Yaoundé. And in this edition of the program, we're going to be talking about the legacy of the national chairman of the Social Democratic Front SDF political party, Ni John Frundi. For more than 3 decades, he fought for democracy, he fought for the return to multi-party politics in Cameroon. He fought for good governance, freedom of expression. He fought for social justice. He died earlier this week at the age of 82, and we're going to be focusing on what he's been fighting for, and more specifically in the recent years he fought at the front line for the resolution of the Anglophone conflict that's been going on for more than 6 years today, in which thousands, hundreds of thousands have been killed, people have been maimed, properties destroyed, many displaced, and he himself suffered the consequences of the Anglophone crisis, and of course the Anglophone problem that's been there for several decades today. And he fought for the federal solution to that problem and other problems plaguing the Republic of Cameroon. We want to focus on that legacy today, and we'll also be paying tribute to the late national chairman, the late outspoken, courageous, and outstanding politician in the Republic of Cameroon. Meet our guest in some few seconds. Our guest today is Senator Vanigansen Mochiggle. He is a member of the National Executive Committee of the Social Democratic Front SDF political party, member of Cameroon's Upper House of Parliament, and fourth Vice President of the Senate. And he's joining us today in this edition of The Inside. Mr. Senator, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Mr. Babila.
You're one of the persons who have been with the chairman for all these years, more than 3 decades of fight for democracy, the return to multi-party politics, and other issues concerning the national life, freedom of expression, and so on. How did you get to know the chairman?
Oh, it's a very interesting story. It's as early as the 1970s. I got to know the chairman through one of our big brothers, a retired senior superintendent of police, Mr. Alfred Kwende, who once in Bamenda, because the chairman loved sports so much. Mr. Kwende loved sports, and we were in town, and he took me to a BB bookshop, and we entered a BB bookshop. Walked down into, he had an office, very small office. What was interesting was the pictures on the wall. You saw the pictures of John F. Kennedy, the pictures of Kwame Nkrumah, the picture of Malcolm X, General Gowon, and Sigmund Freud. It touched me, most especially the picture of Malcolm X and Kwame Nkrumah. So from there, we chatted, and in his legendary style, when you met the chairman, he would not let you go. He would always want you to share a meal with him. He invited us. He said, "No, in the dialect, you will not go away with this. You are your friend." And we left from the ABB bookshop on Commercial Avenue and went to his compound in Tarokong. It's not the compound you see today. And we had lunch, and from that day I became glued to the chairman. The chairman was president of PW Club of Bamenda at the time, and we immediately created the fan club in Yaoundé, which was headed by Commissioner Kwende, and I was the secretary. And from there, when he created the party, in fact, we all clustered around him because we knew his values, we knew his vision, we knew the type of person he was. That's how I came to know the chairman, and I'd been with him from that time, the creation of the party, to his exit to eternal glory.
Right. Right, just a little bracket before we go further. You talked about pictures and you mentioned some key figures in the African history, Kwame Nkrumah and the others, Malcolm X. What caught your attention in a special way in those pictures?
They were great revolutionary and Pan-Africanist leaders, especially the Osejefo Kwame Nkrumah. And for the chairman to have the picture with Africa must unite of Kwame Nkrumah showed that the chairman was a Pan-Africanist. And Malcolm X was one of the followers and believers in the preaching of Marcus Garvey, who wanted the Back to African movement, who created the Black Star Line, that had to bring black Americans from America back to Africa. And it's no accident if you look at the emblem of the Ghanaian Republic, that they have the Black Star. In fact, it was inspired from Marcus Garvey. So I realized that the chairman was a Pan-Africanist, and I'm a Pan-African myself and a great believer in the Osage from Kwame Nkrumah.
All right, back to something which you mentioned earlier and which has been coming up again and again, even in our interviews with some of the persons who are close to the chairman, precisely in Bamenda. There's some who are still at his Tarikon residence in Bamenda as we speak now, and they have been there with him for several decades. Some who only found themselves there during the ghost town in the 1992, and they ran and entered the chairman's compound, and they finally ended there with the chairman. The chairman was apparently a very welcoming somebody, a very sociable somebody.
In fact, the term is gregarious. He impacted in different manners the people he met. And as you rightly say, there were refugees who came in from Southern Sudan, some from Namibia, whom the chairman sponsored in the University of Buea, who are back home to their country today. So you realize that the chairman, that socialist aspect in the chairman was depicted. When I saw those pictures, I realized that this man was not an ordinary person. So the creation of the SDF and the political ideology that the SDF adopted was no accident. It reflected the inner self of the chairman. And that is why, what explains, the presence of those who are in no way related to him, but who live in his compound, and even either in Yaoundé or in Bamenda. That is the chairman. The chairman's table there's always food on his table. So when you don't be unfortunate to visit the chairman at 11 a.m. Know that you will not leave if you don't eat. If you are a journalist and you get there and you say you are leaving, you say, okay, I will not give you the interview you want. You must eat, and then he will give you the interview. That was the chairman. So that can explain why you saw a lot of people clustering around him who were not necessarily SDF party members. That's why the chairman cuts across. And so many people might even think that that nature of his made believe later on, as the party grew bigger, that he was whining and dining with other people. No, the chairman was basically somebody who believed in bringing people together. I would narrate an anecdote. When he was president of PW Bamenda, every time there was a visiting team, first division team, that played at the Bamenda Stadium, after the match, he gave them a reception. That was unheard of. They could not believe it.
Whether PWG Bamenda won or not.
Exactly. The reception was there. And that is why, when he even created the party, some of the presidents of those football clubs quickly came on board, knowing that, hey, if he's that president of Peter Bamenda, he would do well for this country. That's the chairman attitude. The chairman's nature actually permitted mobilization around the SDF at its creation.
I have personally experienced some of those things you're talking about. I've had to run interviews with him on several occasions, and he wouldn't allow us to go start the interview without having breakfast.
Thank God you are a living witness.
Yeah. And so from the mill, how did it progress to you becoming a member of the party, and then up to becoming a member of the National Executive Council of the
Committee.
Party, the Executive Committee of the party?
Is very, very interesting. I know if some of my friends watching this interview will say, look at that political prostitute. In fact, I in my early life, I was a bona fide member of the CNU party, the Unified, that is Cameroon National Union, which later on transformed to Cameroon People's Democratic Movement. And I worked at the Central Committee of the party. And later on, when I was in the north as a provincial delegate, the SDA was created. And when the SDA was created, and the chairman, and I learned that the leader of the party was a certain Ni John Frundi, I joined the party. And I think I'm one of the few senior civil servants who joined the SDF at the time. It was not an easy thing to do. Anybody, civil servant at that time, who belonged to the opposition was regarded as a pariah. And that is why I joined the party, and from then till today, I've been a member of the SDF party. And I progressed. I attended almost all conventions till this. There's no convention that except the Marwa convention, because during the Marwa convention I was the delegate, and I didn't want to. I had what we call obligations as the provincial delegate, to separate my administrative activities from my political activities, because it was already causing me a lot of problems. So it's true, Marwa was so closed, but a lot of the work, a lot of the printing work, photocopying work was done in my office in Garwa and carried to Marwa.
You joined the opposition party while on duty as a civil servant?
Yes.
That must have been the fruit of a very deep conviction.
You can say that again. It shocked a lot of my friends. Even to today, I've met a lot of them at the Senate. In fact, it's not long ago, one of them really asked me that, why did you leave? What made you, what send you to the SDF? Pourquoi tu es parti dans l'opposition? So I joked with him, I said, no, if I did not go to the opposition, I will not meet you at the Senate. He said, we laughed. He said, no, why not? You were already at the door of power. But I joined the party out of a profound conviction as a Pan-Africanist.
All right. Now, the fight of the chairman for democracy. First of all, the first thing was the return to multi-party politics. That was not an easy thing at the time when there were some dispositions that prohibited contrary opinions to the system that was in place. But the chairman took the fall and launched the party in the midst of that difficult political climate.
Curiously, the constitution at that time did not ban multi-partyism, but the prevailing dispensation was such that nobody could dare to contradict or challenge the party or the government at the time. That is why, when in an interview, the President of the Republic, I think in an interview with Eric Chinje, said, no, people don't need to go to the bush or Susongo, to express their opinion, to create political parties, they are free to do so. The following day, the chairman, the committee they had put in place thinking about, pluralistic politics in Cameroon, went up and deposited the file creating the Social Democratic Front. Actually, it should have been a Social Democratic Party, but in between, a Social Democratic Party was created in Nigeria. So if they had left that appellation, it should have been if they were copying, they were taking the example of the Q from Nigeria. So it was now termed the Social Democratic Front. That is why the governor at the time who accepted the invitation was under hellfire. Even the Minister of Territorial Administration at the time, His Royal Highness the Sultan of Fumban, they didn't take it as a joke. You know this now, all its history. You know what happened. The party, though it was launched, was never recognized. Came under serious repression. You know the story. You know what happened the day of the launching, and we just say it's history today, but it showed how the chairman was a man who could always, there, and he had a lion heart. He was an extremely courageous person, and it's this courage which made believe that the man had, extraordinary powers, that he could catch bullets, and they would turn into water, and because he was always at the front line of action.
Yeah, we heard stories of the chairman disappearing.
That is true. It happened. There was a meeting in Kongsamba at the former Secretary General of the Presidency, Eboa. So in the course of the meeting, there was a disagreement. And the chairman insisted that no, Eboa had to, since it was taking place in Kongsamba, MP, the party that was headed by Eboa, should have been the one to chair and control, and that what they had decided in the previous meeting should first, be presented. So there was argument. The chairman got up and entered his car. He was driven by a certain Abega. They sent vehicles to call him back. They did not. They neither saw the car. And then there was that belief that as he entered the car, he was already at Tarikon. No, the chairman did not belong to any occultic movement at all. He was a bona fide Presbyterian Christian, and curiously had a lot of connection with the Roman Catholic prelates. Most of the bishops from Vezegov, especially, were his very close friends. And every year he used to send food to Sichong, to most of the sisters. That was the chairman. Though there was always believed that, he had these occultic powers. No, he did not belong to any occultic organization.
Right. Now, what's your perception of the democratic struggles of the national chairman? For all these years, the country seemed not to have progressed to the pace that he would have loved to see. When we look at his statements concerning the democratic progress of Cameroon, there is something like a feeling of unsatisfaction that he has struggled that much, but much has not been done. What's your perception of the democratic struggles of the national chairman?
No, if you look at the prevailing situation at the time and what we have today, I think the chairman can rest in peace. He achieved. But it's like the story of Oliver Twist. we always need more. I think he has achieved. We sitting here, Babla, you and myself, we epitomizes the achievement of the chairman in one way or the other. There's press freedom. Look at the number of televisions that you have in the country. Look at the number of newspapers, the number of radios. At the time, the media space was gagged. There was no freedom of speech, no freedom of association. The birth of the SDF, the fight of the chairman to bring in the liberty, actually caused the enactment of the famous liberty laws that you know of.
The 1990s.
Exactly. That's an achievement, a great achievement. And me in the Senate, it was a fight for a democratic society where the citizens are responsible for electing their officials, where they have a say, where the election, which is the only mechanism acceptable, peaceful for change to take place, was, for it to be credible, it must be transparent. He fought for that. He marched down, the SDF militants marched down the 20th May Avenue carrying transparent ballot boxes. They laughed at them at the time. That, look at these crazy fools. What do we have today? Transparent ballot boxes. Because before, the ballot boxes were made of plank, and when you come, you didn't know what was inside, were already stuffed. SDF members marched down the 20th May Avenue carrying computers, asking for what? That the electoral process should be computerized. Advocating for biometric system. What do we have today? There's computerization of the electoral system. So most of the things that he advocated for, they came. He advocated for the electoral authority was the Minister of Territorial Administration for a very long time. And because of that fight, we moved from Minat to Onel. Onel 1 to Onel 2. And he continued the pressure. From Onel 2, we are in Elekam. We should accept that there's actually the electoral process is becoming acceptable. There's much to be done, but it's becoming acceptable.
There have been some changes, even though
crucial changes.
There are still a lot of things to be perfected, according to you of the opposition.
And one of the only things that I could say that has not been done is the single ballot system and the complete biometric system, which will actually check fraud. And I think we are going towards that bit by bit, because there's a general mind change now. When you want an election to be acceptable, it must be credible. For it to be credible, it must be fair and transparent. And I think we are moving towards that. So I think, from the condolence messages I received from my colleagues at the Senate since the chairman passed into eternity, to be very candid, impressed me. I did not know that they held him in such high esteem.
The tributes are streaming in from across the national territory, from different stratas, different areas of politics, economic or whatever, and even beyond. But some of the things...
And just to tell you, one of the first person who called me Monday night, as I was driving to the house, I'd just been informed at 11:45 that come over. I knew it had happened. I received a call from Angel Fobi, and I was surprised. And she started telling me how chairman impacted enormously on her life and shaped her thinking. I was surprised. And even said, as we were growing up, my father had a lot of differences with the chairman, but I admired the chairman a lot. The chairman took me to Tarikon, he took me to Baba. The chairman, he would talk to me about animals, he would talk to me about. So I was surprised. From the United States, that was the first call, the first message of condolence. I said, this is one of the greatest Cameroonian politician that she has lived, to know. That was her description.
Right. We will later on. We will talk about how to continue with the struggles that the chairman carried on for more than 30 decades, because more than 3 decades, because we're talking about press freedom or freedom of expression earlier. There's still a lot to do in that area, as you indicated, because journalists are still being killed for speaking out, arbitrarily arrested, illegally detained, all of that, even despite the number of media organs that are proliferating the media space in Cameroon. But there is still much question. They see a question mark on the press freedom, and thus the need to continue with the fight. Now, the chairman fought for social justice. I remember in one of the interviews I had with him, he was explaining to me why he requested that tollgate fees should no longer be paid at
Matazim. I was just going to say yes.
Ganga, where the nature of the road in those areas was very bad, and so he stopped the payment of tollgate fees in those areas. Tell us a little more about the chairman's fight for social justice.
Well, we started by saying that he was a community person, a gregarious person. He loved, humanity. So normally, he will not like to see. He did not like to see people suffer. That's why there's a revelation that I will make. People might think, a lot of people believe that the chairman is very rich. Not at all. If you give chairman $1 million francs now, as A comes in, B comes in, C comes in, that money is just going out like that. Take the food. The food was permanently on his table. You ate in Tarikon several times. You ate in Yaoundé. If you were to factor the cost, so the chairman had that. In fact, he was a born socialist. That is why you could see in him pictures of Kwame Nkrumah, pictures of Malcolm X. His behavior was a direct translation of his beliefs, his idiosyncrasy. And when you talk about the toll gates, as a matter of fact, it's about, I don't know whether you really know the road to Bamenda from Congo, Babaju, then you ask yourself, it's an aberration that you are paying money for a road to be that toll gate. The toll gates are meant for what? For repairs of roads, and you are paying toll gate on a road that you cannot drive on. It was the same thing at Maiganga. He got to Maiganga. It was at was it Maiganga or Tibati, one of these towns. It was at night, and there was a toll gate. The chairman asked the man to open the gate. The man said he must pay. He came out of the vehicle and pushed the man away. Opened the gate, held it. The vehicle passed, and the other vehicle was coming. He asked them, they all passed. I say, if he's coming back and see this toll gate here, you will get it from me. And the news went wild into Maiganga. We have one of our former senators, who is now at the fourth vice president, Awa Magdalene, teaches now in the University of Gandore. As a student, that news got to them in school, and that's how she became a member of the SDF. Who is this man who dared challenge the system? So they were all wanting to see the chairman. So when he came to the rally, they wanted to touch. But when you touch the chairman, or let alone the chairman greets you, they will not wash their hands for this. You know. So the chairman, by nature, when you love people, we are supposed to think about their well-being, and that's why you can see that socialist aspect in the chairman. That's why he fought for most of those things that concern the family and the society. He fought against corruption. You know, we're talking about now not only on the toll gate. You know, social welfare. It is talk about SRC. It was part of the the economic program of the Social Democratic Front, on how, you know, because a lot of banks went bankrupt, and with the monies of the poor, how can the poor be compensated? How would they get back their money? It was necessary for government to put in place a structure that could recover and pay back this money. You know, this SRC, what they call the debt recovery agency or company, was a conception of the SDF. So there are many things he conceived which are being applied today, and that is why I think after his death, a lot of people they look back and say, oh, this man has done a lot for Cameroon. This happened because of him. This happened because of him. This happened because of him. That is why all of us today, we are sorry and happy about his exit. Right. Sorry because we lost somebody, which is normal. Happy because of the recognition that he actually left, you know, his footprint on the sand of history.
Right, I want us to go to the newsstands now, and we're going to see what the newspapers reported this week. This is the press review by Immaculate Fogwe.
The Sun reports Nijan Frundi, 1941 to 2023, SDF National Chairman quits the stage at 82. According to municipal updates, power returns to God following the demise of the chairman. The Chronicle Times describes the death of a chairman to be an end of an era. The Guardian Post highlights the struggles of the chairman from being a bookseller to him becoming an emblematic politician. Another edition of Municipal Updates says President Paul Biya and former Ivory Coast President Laurent Gbagbo eulogized Nijan Fundi's historic legacy. The Herald Tribune reports, at opening ceremony of the June session of Parliament, Speaker of the National Assembly Kavaege Jibril condemns kidnapping for ransom in Northwest and Southwest regions. The Guardian Post exclaims, fruits of continuous sensitization, 32 separatist fighters surrender in Dian Division within 1 month. The Post says, womb boils as SDO requests application for the ASU vacant throne in Menchum Division, Northwest region. The reporter, pilgrimage to sacred places of Islam, Cameroon Muslim pilgrims bound for Saudi Arabia. Cameroon Echoes is worried about the alarming drop in quality of cocoa, while mentioning the fact that Cameroon has lost billions of francs CFA due to the increase of illegal cocoa exportation to Nigeria. The Guardian Post takes interest in the crisis within the Association of Elite Clubs. The paper mentions the fact that 20 out of 35 club presidents have pulled out of Abude Pascal-led ASEC to create factional association.
Thank you, Immaculate Fogwe, for the press review. Now we want to talk about the most recent issue that has been on the lips of the national chairman of the Social Democratic Front, Nichan Frundi, has been at the forefront, speaking out on the Anglophone crisis that's been pulling on for more than 6 years today. And of course, the Anglophone problem that's been there for several decades. And the national chairman and the Social Democratic Front kept putting forth the federal solution to the problem, which is not yet accepted by the government of the Republic that remains or that maintains that the decentralization system is the solution, is the way forward. And want to know, what's your opinion about the chairman's fight for the resolution of this conflict? He himself suffered. He was kidnapped at least twice. His properties burned. Even his Darikon residence came under arson attack. And he kept on fighting, even in captivity.
His house,
he kept on speaking
burnt.
to the separatists and telling them, and even refusing to pull out senators and parliamentarians from the upper and lower houses of parliament as he was asked to do. What's your take on this struggle of the national chairman?
Well, as I told you, that he was an extremely courageous person. Very few people under gunpoint will take such resist. And but the chairman was able, to dare tell them that no, I would not do it. I would not order them to leave. See, the truth about what we call today the Anglophone problem is not a problem that started yesterday. It started from the union of the two states, and it has always existed. So the difference between the separatists and the SDF, incarnated by the chairman, was not over belief but attitude. How to solve this problem? Taking up the gun was not the solution. And that's why the chairman has always been against any form of violence. In fact, this famous declaration when in 1992 he came under tremendous pressure that he should take the gun in order to go to A2D. He turned it down. He said, if I have to walk on dead bodies to go to A2D because I want to be president, I will not accept. I would rather step down. And if you look at the chairman over the years, he could talk, hit the table, stomp on the table like Khrushchev used to do in the United Nations. But never would the chairman advocate for any form of violence. Not at all. Not at all. So he was not oblivious to the Anglophone problems. But the differences was how the problems could be solved. And that is why when the SDA was created, the Anglophone problems was taken into cognizance, and that is why the federal system of governance became an ideology. That the regions should manage themselves, and by so doing, the population, the problems of the population shall be identified by the various people and treated, not coming, and their solutions will be found at the local level and not coming from the center. Though we would say decentralization, no, the difference between decentralization and federalism is very clear. The central government decides on what to send down to the local authorities, but federalism is an act of parliament which permits the the states or the regions, whatever, to carry out, even to seek for loans to develop their regions. So it was just a question of time that some of these problems could have been solved. Even the problem of the teachers, the problem of the lawyers, was a question of time and excessive bureaucracy. So the people who manipulated our brothers to take up the guns, most of them were not in Cameroon, so they did not know or lived the consequences. But Chairman was in Nigeria, so he lived part of the Nigerian Civil War and knew the consequences of war. That when you take up the gun, it's difficult to put it down. And that is why Chairman was against any form of armed conflict. And the boys, they came to him several times wanting him, to be their leader. When you started, you did not inform me. Why do you want me to come and lead you? I don't believe in secession.
And that's what came out as the reason for which he was kidnapped, because it was said that the separatists wanted to discuss with him. They wanted to have a discussion with him and tell him what they wanted from him.
Exactly. And but he told them that I will not do it. That night in Jakiri, he told them point blank, I would not ask them to leave parliament and I would not support secession. You people should do what you want to do. Now the boys, what they allowed, one of them said, this chairman, easy. So and they left him. So that's a national chairman. May he rest in the bosom of his creator.
And today he's been likened to Moses, who fought through the desert but never entered the promised land. Well, just like Christian Cardinal Dumi, who also fought. At the end of the day, he went without seeing the end of the tunnel.
No, well, I think the chairman, it is true. It's depending on what you want to say, what the promised land. But a lot of the things that he advocated, a lot of things that he fought for, he saw some of the fruits. He lived some of the fruits. And at the sitting by him in the hospital, he called beckoned on me, and we came. He asked about how the reorganization of the basic structures of the party in the field was going on. I briefed him in the littoral, and he went into this. Thank God that government has just addressed it, hate speech. You see, and said those are the armed instruments and the weapons of weak people. When you see people who cannot achieve, people who want easy thing, they start preaching, they turn into hate speech. And then he delved into national cohesion and peace. The country cannot develop, if it's at see what is happening to our two regions. See, the Northwest used to be heaven of, was like Boston. The university institution was the major, bastion. It was the economy, constituted the economic activity, generating revenue for the region. What's happening today? And then again, he spoke about federalism. That this country, the SDF, should make sure that the federal option is not abandoned. And the country should remain united. It's about 2 weeks ago. In fact, I think that was one of the last intimate conversation that we had with him. So I think it's true. The only bitter, not actually bitterness, was that a lot of the people that he has stood for and fought for and projected betrayed him enormously, and he felt really hurt. But again, he took it very lightly. He said that's it's difficult to read, the mind expression from the face. That's human nature.
Referring to the people who recently
some of them, and you see, there and others, as you rightly say when we're starting this program, that we should not, delve into some of those issues. And every leader always have, cohorts, people who is key people. Some who believe fervently, some who are there just because of the benefits, and some who at the least opportunity would turn the coat. So he examined all those, and it did not show any bitterness, amazingly. But actually, said the party is, contrary to what people believe, is going to bounce back. That this reorganization we are carrying out, we should be very serious with it, because that is the beginning of the bouncing back of the party.
All right, let's take some interviews now. And in the interviews of the week, we're going to pay tribute to the late national chairman of the Social Democratic Front, Vanigansen Mochiggle, and we are bringing to you some excerpts of some of his recent statements on some national issues, including democracy, the fight for social justice, the Anglophone crisis, and other issues of national interest. Stay with us. We'll be right back in a moment.
To tell me to retrace my journey, it's been a rough one. It's been a hard one. It's been tedious. It's been strenuous. It's been very exacting and demanding. And as I told you, whenever they announced presidential elections, most of you, especially in the field of journalism, are living witnesses. When I say journalists, because you were phoning to find out information where. I will start from Kuseri in the north, having rallies coming down. Sometimes by midnight, I'm still at a rally ground. And when you come and meet the people waiting for you and they're there playing their drums, dancing, being happy, you have to talk to them. You will not fear that when I go up there, they can shoot me. And I thank God for the protection. I thank Cameroonians for their love and protection. I want to thank nearly everybody who participated and contributed in one way or the other towards my success in politics for this number of years. When I launched a party here, they said the party was launched by Nigerians. I brought 10,000 Nigerians in to launch a party. I said, look, excuse me, Mr. Government spokesperson, if I bring 10,000 people from Nigeria, have you ever calculated how many buses I will need to bring these 10,000 people from Nigeria in? Secondly, have you checked how many hotels I will use to host these 10,000 people, the feeding, etc.? And these 10,000 people passed where? Not at the borders. You didn't arrest one of them. Then again they said, I had escaped to Nigeria.
Mr. Chairman,
and I'm telling you, all this is to show you systematically that from day one, the government of Mr. Biya has been telling lies, making untrue stories to the world, which is not good for us. In the 2018 elections, will you, from a standpoint, and coming from Bali, where they're still fighting to today in Bali, can you tell me that elections took place in Bali? But the CPDM comes up with the Council of Bali. They fought our incumbent mayor there, burned his house, killed his pigs in the pen. When people go to that wickedness, when people go to that level of wickedness, it is very unfortunate. Up till now, we are talking problems in the Northwest and the Southwest, problems in the North and Southwest. They've never been debated on the Cameroonian parliament. And it's a parliament outside that will debate and send word to us that we start acting on. It's a shame for us. And when I went to Pinyin with your colleagues, for instance, I came back here, and when President Musonge came here with his team, I was so angry and so worked up that I told him that if I were 50, I could have gone to the bush to fight, because I saw the wicked way in which the corpses were mutilated, that you shot a person to death, and you take your gun again and you char the body with up and down, scatter the face, that is terribly inhuman. That when you even kill, you have to bring them together to burn.
You were in captivity for over 5 hours.
Maybe 6.5 or 7 hours.
What were you talking with them? What were they saying?
First, they took us to this house and said they were going to finish their meeting, because they first told us that the other leaders were in a house having a meeting, so we were going to meet them. So I was going happily, hoping that I was going to meet all of them in the meeting house. But they diverted, took us to another place where they put us in a room and put me a little distance off the door where people could see me. We were sitting in there. So they said they were going to conclude their meeting with the other leaders, then come meet us or take us to meet them. So I said, okay, but a gentleman interviewed us. I said, you cannot be interviewing us, you alone. He said, wants to take some basic information to the other leaders before they come meet us again. And my suspicion is that the first interviews that he made, he went and they were communicating with people abroad, because my brother was still in captivity, and he told me that he had been warned that as I was going to Nsor, they were going to kidnap me there, and that when they kidnapped me in Nsor, they were going to bring me back to the camp where they were in Bafut, so that they'll have 2 brothers and 2 workers, 4 of us, and then they'll see what Furundi will do. When this gentleman tried to block me from this view of my deputy mayor of Kumbo, I had to blow this for him to know that I was in there.
The security situation is gaining stability. It was really hell, but then with the permanent effort of the forces of law and order, stability and tranquility is coming back to the different villages that constitute our area, and more especially Babisi to be particular. The security situation did not do any good to the socio-cultural and even developmental aspect of the village. Most of the youths ran away, the elders equally ran away, and then since the village is fundamentally an agricultural village, so development had to drop. But then with the coming back of stability, with the help of the forces of law and order, development is gradually coming back to the limelight through an increase in the farming activities and other commercial activities too. To begin with, since about 2015, 2016, the Village Development and Cultural Association named Wukuda came to a near standstill because of our inability to work well with the grassroots, that is the village. But then Now that things are gradually getting better, we are revamping, we are relaunching our village development and association movement again all together. And then this is our first time since more than 6 years that we're coming together as a village to see into our developmental aspects. The stakes are fundamentally mobilizing the village towards developmental aspects again, analyzing and evaluating where we stopped, and then looking at the way forward. That notwithstanding, we shall be meeting in the Douala, the economic capital of Cameroon, on the 24th of June, in what we call the annual general meeting, the AGM of the Wushincho Cultural and Development Association. In this AGM, we shall be making an analysis of what we have done, what we have not been able to do because of the insecurity situation, and what is to be done in the nearest future.
He said, the chairman in his last words said the SDF should not abandon, should make sure that the federal option should not be abandoned. How do you think this can be done? How do you think the federal option should be pushed forth?
It's very simple. Every political party is created to grab power, and the day the SDF will get to power, they will put that option into play. It might take time, but we cannot know when. It might not be us, it might be the younger generation, but it should remain, the party should be anchored on the federal option. So it's not, if you don't, if you are not in power, you cannot articulate or implement your policies. You articulate, you conceive, but you cannot implement. It's only when you are in government. It's only when you have power, you have the governing instruments, that you can implement them. And at least the party is so structured that continuity will be guaranteed. So we look favorably into the future.
Right, and guaranteeing the continuity that you're talking about, and for the party to bounce back, as you indicated earlier, there is definitely need for everybody to come on board and look in the same perspective. Because of recent, there have been some other people looking to another direction, and that created some internal issues, and some of the people are not out. And so how do you see the future of the SDF in this perspective of everybody coming together in the same perspective, in the same direction, and forging for the same objectives, for the same purpose?
I think, anybody who's out, it's because it's not a true militant. He was a true member of the party, he will not be out. They are out because of they've been disciplined. And we have when I say the structure of the party, there's the national chairman, there's the first vice president, there's the second vice president, etc., to the fifth vice president, the secretary general. So in the absence of a national chairman, the first vice president takes over the activities of the party. That's President Joshua Osi. Those who are out are those who have been disciplined. So when you carry yourself in a manner as to expose the party to public ridicule, you are disciplined. It is clearly written in the constitution of the party, and that constitution was not written today. It's a long time, and those people who have fallen victim to this disciplinary action, they had also applied it on other members before.
Article 82.
Yes, exactly. It's like if you go into French history, there's the famous Robespierre, who created the guillotine. And he himself went through the guillotine. When he created the guillotine, he did not know he would go through the guillotine. So, you have to live in a manner as to preach, what you advocate. Don't want people to, don't pretend to say you are holy when at night or day you are doing those vices that contradicts your public posturing. So these colleagues were disciplined because of their behavior that went in variance to the party rules and regulation. Like you say, Article 82 deals with the loss of membership. And membership can be through a normal disciplinary procedure carried out by the organ of the party to which the member belongs, like the ward, the electoral district, the region, or NEC, or through auto exclusion, like in the Catholic Church, Litaia Sententia. You see, when you are a fervent Christian with your single wife, you have right to the Holy Sacrament. You take communion. But the day you decide to take a second wife, you exclude yourself from the sacrament. It's not the church that excluded you. You decided to take a second wife. So that's self-punishment. That's Article 82. The party only takes cognizance of the fact that you have engaged yourself in activities that exposes the party to ridicule. And that is it. We just take cognizance.
That Article 82, some are thinking that it is overused, and so contradicting the federation that the chairman has always stood for, bringing everybody together, bringing everybody in the same fold.
All organization, all association, the political parties and association, they have rules and regulation. And for an organization to remain strong, there must be discipline. When there is no discipline, it becomes like what they call a coup de roi Pito.
A no man's land.
Yeah, there's total indiscipline. You don't control. You see it even in public services. You see it in governance. When there's no discipline, everybody behave as he wants. But when there's discipline, you know that if I do this, this is what awaits me. And that is why when you have, you respect the law, everything works. But when you start going against the law, you are punished. Nobody is above the law. Simply, it's not a question of that you are sending the people out because no. They know that this is the law. If I commit this crime, I will be punished. There's a famous saying that ignorance of the law is not
it's no excuse
at all. No. So we believe, and they know what to do. It doesn't mean that when you have A2, you cannot come back. There is a concrete example. The former regional member, Mr. Mukuri Molema, if my memory is still correct, was victim of Article 82. He followed the constitutional provisions. He applied to the convention. He appealed, to the convention. And at the convention, they listened to his case. He was readmitted into the party. And he rose up to become the regional chairperson of the littoral region. To tell you how it is a very articulate, democratic article, that has instilled discipline. If the SDF has remained strong and united, it's thanks to Article 82.
So the door is still open for the prodigal son.
Extremely, they know it. But see, most of them had their mischievous intentions. Yes, because to be candid, what Babila, when there's a crisis, a conflict, you always ask that, what is the origin of this conflict? The origin of the conflict simply, the chairman at the next meeting announces that I want to step down at the next convention. But I want the party to be reorganized from the basic organs, that's the wards.
Not from the convention as it was done before.
No, it has never been that way. It was always been from the wards to the convention, so that by the time you get to the convention, you are having new faces, But the other people advocated for that they should hold the convention first before coming to reorganization. Yeah. And that's how the conflict started. So committees were now created, commissions were created to oversee the reorganization in the various regions. I am in charge of the littoral region. My former colleague, Honorable Jean-Michel Nietzsche, was in charge of the northern region. So he was part of the decision-making organ. But he failed to go to the north on several occasions. And that's why it was changed. And somebody else in another team put in place. Or simply, are you saying that since he did not go there, they should have left the north like that? No. The north has to be reorganized. All the regions in the country were reorganized.
Now, for the past years, the SDF has recorded what can be qualified as dwindling results right up to 2018, when it recorded its worst, coming fourth at the presidential election. Now, how do you foresee the SDF of tomorrow without not the national chairman, because there's definitely going to be another national chairman who will emerge from the convention coming up on the 28th to the 29th of July, but the SDF without Ni John Frundi?
First of all, when you talk about the dwindling results of the SDF, they are mostly, I would attribute it to external factors, and principally the electoral system. And that is why we fought relentlessly first for the electoral authority to be changed, to permit an independent organ to organize elections. We've not yet reached there, because if you notice, most of those that were appointed before were bona fide members of the ruling party. When you come to the last election, you agree with me, Mr. Babila, that the bastion, the stronghold, the electoral base is northwest and the southwest. You want to tell me that what happened there was an election? I'm asking you. You know, the journalist is the contemporary historian, because you live, you saw it, you report it, and history now it will become history, because the story of man constitutes history. You lived it. You want to tell me that was an election?
Government said there was an election.
No, I'm asking you, not government. I'm asking you. You lived it as a journalist, as the watchdog of the people. Will you tell the people that was an election? I know you are not a stammerer, you are dumb. So it just shows that you agree with what I'm saying. So I believe very strongly to the that our fortunes are still good. We have a lot of young men who are coming on board. Like I've been reorganizing in the littoral region, and I was amazed at the electoral conferences. We had 600. I think the minimum delegates that we have had is about 600 and something. I think that was in the Douala 1 or Douala 5. In Banga, in Loom, we had 820 delegates. Before then, when we had the abortive election, it was 1,021. So those are signs of revival, strong revival. So I believe in the fortunes of the SDF.
I believe in a greater future, the SDF.
You can say that again.
All right. What would be, because I've put up what I call the peace slot in this program, and every guest will have to say a word of peace. This is the most needed asset in this country today, and especially for the crisis-stricken regions where peace has been almost a rare commodity. I mean, real peace has been almost a rare commodity, even though the authorities have been saying that gradual peace or peace is returning and so on. But there are still several parts of those two regions that are in very difficult situations today. What would be your word of peace to those people, to those who are governing this country?
No, I think the first thing about what is peace, I will compliment government in the position they took, to condemn hate speech. Because if we were to live as Christians, and Cameroon is a great Christian country, loving our neighbors as ourselves, we will not have problems, because you will be doing to your neighbor what you want to be done unto you. I would only invite people to live, to practice their Christian beliefs. Not only to go to church on Sunday, dress very well, go to church on Sunday, but to practice their Christian beliefs. I think what has been happening in the two regions has driven home the need for peace, where people are conscious of the need for peace. Because without peace, there can be no economic development, like the chairman said, on his dying bed. And those governing us should carry their duty in a manner as to show affection to everybody that they have authority over. Because one of the causes of conflicts, one of the dangers is when a man feels his frustration. You feel frustrated, you feel excluded, and you feel marginalized. You start asking yourself questions, and it's the cause of asking those questions that you see the peace is being threatened. If we actually practice love for one another, I think there will be peace in our country. And I think Cameroonians generally are peace loving. If you go around Cameroon, which I have done, to be very candid, Cameroonians are peace loving. Whether you go to the east, you go to the north, if you enter the town, you see the way you are welcome. You don't feel as if you are in a strange place. I sometimes ask myself, is it those who go to school that are responsible for this discrimination? Because when peace is threatened by some of those vices like discrimination, exclusion, we can only ask government to put in place some measures that will preventive measures, preventive punishment that will stop some of the hate practices that will guarantee peace. As I say, without peace we cannot develop, and we need peace in order to develop. And I'll call on my brothers and sisters, most especially those in the Northwest, in general, Mezam in particular, that it is time for us to drop the guns. It is time for us to see how together we can move forward and build a better region and a better Cameroon for future generations, for ourselves and for future generations.
Right, Senator Vanigansen Mochiggle, member of the executive, the national.
Vanigansen, let me compliment you at least. Vanigansen.
Right, Senator Vanigansen Mochiggle, member of the National Executive Committee of the Social Democratic Front, member of Cameroon's Upper House of Parliament, and the 4th Vice President of the Senate Bureau. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, I should thank you, Mr. Babila and Equinoxe Television, for offering me the opportunity to talk on a great Cameroonian leader, a Republican, a political dinosaur who who's gone back to his creator. And I will compliment Equinoxe Television for the work, especially your program, Insight, for these incisive interviews that you carry, for it permits people to know more. Because information is very important, in society. We are talking about peace. We journalists are also great agents for peace through the information that we give out. And when we give out what is true, when we don't misinform, we are helping in building peace. And I thank Equinoxe Television for, especially Insight, for the work they have been doing so far.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today's edition of The Insight. Goodbye.